Hey Amarillo, I'm Jason Boyette, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo, the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. As part of this podcast partnership with Brick and Elm magazine, I want to give a podcast shout out to Marmy's Porch, Adrian Neiman Photography, Alliance Credit Union, and Wilson Hague PLLC. The January-February issue of Brick and Elm is out now. It's on newsstands, and the cover features the amazing winners of our first ever Brickley Awards. We're really excited about this, and we're honoring these winners at an awards ceremony event on February 4th. So you're invited to that. It's open to the public. You can get tickets and read the issue at brickandelm.com. Today's guest is Keralee Clay. Keralee is the interim president and CEO of the Amarillo Area Foundation. She stepped into that role after the death of Clay Stribling, who was a guest on this podcast on January 18th, 2021. And I'd encourage you to listen to Clay's episode. It was really good. Clay passed away in December of 2024, but he left the Area Foundation in Keralee's really capable hands. She's been part of that team since 2016, and before that, she was a corporate trainer and a human resources consultant. She worked for the Amarillo Civic Center for several years. She spent a decade acting and performing in New York City, and she has decades of operations experience, human resources experience, all those kinds of things. And so I wanted to hear about her diverse career. I wanted to hear what it was like to succeed a leader like Clay Stribling in what is a very prominent public position. So here's Keralee Clay. Keralee Clay, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Jason. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm honored to have you. I know we've known each other for several years, but I want to start with you the same way I start with all my guests, and that's just to ask why you're here. So what brought you to Amarillo in the first place?
My parents brought me here when I was 7, so I didn't have a lot of say in that, from New Mexico. But then I went to high school here, and then I went away for college, moved away to do some fun things or some crazy things, some people would say. And then my husband and I came back about 16 years ago.
Okay.
And our main reason, frankly, was we had aging parents and we wanted to be closer. And we now had a child, and grandparents are really amazing. You underestimate how amazing grandparents are until you live somewhere where you don't have any of them.
Yeah. I think that is a draw for a lot of people who come back here.
Yeah.
It sounds great to live on your own until you figure out, I'm on my own.
Own, yeah.
Where in New Mexico were you born?
Albuquerque.
Okay.
I was born in Albuquerque.
Do you have like distinct memories of living there versus living here as a child, like what that transition was like?
I do have kind of amazingly clear memories of living there. I remember our house very well. I remember my grade school. I remember my friend Tia. She was my first real friend. But my grandparents lived there until they passed. So we frequently went back. And my mother and I still probably travel to Albuquerque 3 or 4 times a year just to goof off.
Do you remember a difference in living in both places? I mean, kids are not always aware of all that kind of stuff, but like 7, you kind of know what's going on.
Yeah, I felt a difference. I think a lot of it was just the demographics. Mm-hmm. I went to a school that had a great deal of Latinx, and when I came here, it was very different. And I was learning Spanish in kindergarten.
Okay, wow. Good.
And so they teach Spanish there very early, and it was a very bilingual environment. And, moving here, that obviously, especially we moved here in the 1970s. It was, yeah, it was
it's probably even more so now, but yeah.
Yes, definitely more diverse now. But then there was a definite difference in the diversity.
Okay. Where did you go to school?
I went to Western Plateau, Bonham, and then Amarillo High.
Okay. And as you got close to graduation, did you have an idea that you wanted to get into the operational side of like a large community foundation or anything like that? Like what did you want to do?
That was nowhere near on my path. I actually was a soccer player in high school and wanted to do that. I wanted to be Mia Hamm. I mean, that was my goal.
Yeah, was that the period, like the rise of the U.S. women's national team?
As we were starting to do I was on the first female soccer team at Amarillo High.
Okay.
In the 80s. And before that, I always had to play co-ed with the guys, which was also kind of fun. And I wanted to do that. And then I suffered a knee injury, and my college plans fell through my senior year.
Wow.
From that. And I had always sang off and on, especially in church. And my best friend at the time said, I'm going to Arizona State, come with me and audition and see if you can get in. And I did. And I got in to be a music major.
All right.
And it happened in February of my senior year.
Music major is one of those careers that like tends to have very specific paths.
Yes.
Doesn't seem like you've followed that path. So tell me what that looked like as you were going through school, as you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do with this?
Right. Well, first of all, so I went to Arizona State, and it was the first year they allowed us as vocal majors to double major as both opera and musical theater.
Okay.
Which I have a freakishly high voice. I'm one of those coloratura sopranos. So I was doing my senior recital would be like some opera and then some Sondheim. But at the same time, I had no aptitude to understanding what the music. I did not grow up listening to opera or musical theater. So I would go to my musical theater class and sing a song from Evita and had no idea what it was. I'd never seen Evita. So I was on a steep learning curve when I got there. And then I thought, I'll graduate and I'll get my master's degree. I already decided where I wanted to go. And the vocal teacher I wanted to work with for my master's degree passed away. And so I felt like I was kind of lost for a little bit. So I came back here to Amarillo to kind of regroup, met a man, got married, changed my path for a little while, and then ended up working in retail for a while, like you do in your 20s, right? And that's when I started my management kind of background. And then ended up getting a job at the Civic Center as one of the events coordinators.
Okay.
And
this was what, like late 90s?
Mid-90s.
Mid-90s?
Okay. Mid-90s.
Still a pretty thriving scene at the Civic Center during those days.
Yeah, we were busy. But I was also still doing, I started doing Emerald Little Theater when I moved back, and had so much fun with that. And Alan Schenkels will forever be my theater daddy. It was just some special times there. But, primarily focused on just making money, paying mortgage, that sort of thing. And ended up being the assistant manager of the complex for a while, which was crazy. I think it was like 27 years old. And I was the youngest person on staff managing everybody. It was, I don't know what they were thinking letting me do that, but it was a big opportunity for me to really understand operations and HR and even IT. I mean, just things that you need to manage that kind of complex. But I still had the bug to perform, and met my now current husband. I was divorced by then. I already had my starter marriage and was divorced. And I met my what I now call my last husband, and he's a technician. So he did backstage and production management. And I made the decision I was going to go to New York. I was just going to go for it. Why not? Right? I was still young-ish. And Tad and I started dating, and I announced to him that I was moving to New York, and he's like, I'll go with you. So can you imagine?
You knew you'd found the right guy then, right?
But can you imagine, like my kids now, I cannot imagine my kids coming to me and saying, Mom, I'm going to move to New York with a person I've known for 6 months.
Yeah.
I've been there one time. I know one person there to an apartment sight unseen.
Yeah.
With no job.
Like, I don't think you're going to do
that,
right?
With no job. It was crazy, but we thought we'll give it a year and see what happens. And we were there almost 10.
Wow. Okay.
So, we did that for a while.
Tell me what happened. Like what kinds of things did you do?
It was very interesting, Jason, because when you get, and this has maybe changed with an art degree now, but when you get arts degrees, they don't teach you business and marketing and that sort of thing, and really understand, like you know how to do the audition, but once you get the job, how do you get people to come see you?
Yeah.
Right? Or how do you market yourself? Or pay your bills, or just do these things, like understand reading a contract. So I realized it took me a few years, but I realized that I love the performing aspect of it. That particular industry was one I did not enjoy navigating as a business person. I'm not good at selling myself, and that's what you have to do.
Yeah, that's what an audition is, right?
It's what and just again marketing. And I got bored talking about myself, which was why I was so nervous about this, because I don't usually talk
to this podcast, right?
I don't usually talk about myself. I'll talk about the foundation all day. But I was fortunate to be able to do a lot of really fun, edgy films. And I did a crazy musical for quite a while called Das Barbecue, which was Wagner's Ring Cycle set in Texas.
Okay. I've not heard of that, but that sounds amazing.
You need to check it out. It was fun. And then ended up doing a lot of more straight drama. And I didn't realize how much I loved film. Film was very interesting to me as someone who was always a stage performer. and primarily a vocalist, how much I really loved that breaking things down, and the technical side of film was fascinating to me. So I felt very fortunate to get to do some of that.
Did you get to a point where you felt like, okay, I have enough steady work that this is a career? Or did it always feel like you're just kind of shoestringing your way along?
Shoestringing. And as a result, I was also very fortunate that I had a lot of other skills besides just performing. And so I started to be a consultant to sales reps. I would help them with their sales pitch and that sort of thing. And then I started helping small businesses, primarily architect firms. I don't know why I fell into that, with their HR. So I would go in and consult and make sure they had policies and procedures and help them with their benefits or conflict resolution or hiring and onboarding. And I had just done a lot of that in my life. So I kind of shoestring things together by doing that, and ended up creating my Red Clay consulting firm that I did for 15 years.
Did you just figure out that you had an aptitude for that? I mean, you'd been on the performance and audition side and all of that, but like you had not everybody has the mental capacity, the organizational mindset to just manage all that kind of stuff and think about it.
I guess I've been told I have a balanced brain between left and right. So I can kind of manage those two things together, being creative and organizing things. But I'm one of those weird people who loves policy and procedure. And as a result, I love watching politics and how it all works out. And so my staff calls me the policy nerd. And that may be the nice way of putting what they actually call me. But I think those things, parameters are important.
We need those people, right?
But I love people. I really love being around people. So human resources was a natural thing for me, of just wanting to grow people and develop people and help them be the best they can be. Is such a great part of being a leader. And I think human resources is a great way to start that.
When did you know the New York experiment was time to end that?
When our son was 6 months old.
Okay.
In fact, I probably knew it when I was about 9 months pregnant, and we lived in a 6-story walk-up.
Okay.
And my husband had to build me a little seat. But no, I think having a child changed everything.
Yeah.
I had a friend ask me, well, when do you think you'll let him go on the subway by himself? And I thought, 31, 32.
Yeah.
And not having an outdoor space that they can go play. It was just, my husband and I could not wrap our brain around how you raise a child there. And then I also went to my first audition after he was born, and I'm looking across the table at these 20-something, and they're going to determine if my child has health insurance for the next quarter or not, because that's the way it worked. You had so many hours in the union to get your health insurance, and I decided no, I've got to make a change.
Did you come directly back?
We did not. We moved to Denver. We call it our step down theory. Kind of stepping down a little bit. My husband had family in Denver, so we moved there. We were there for a couple of years. Unfortunately, we moved there in 2008 as self-employed people who didn't know anyone in Denver. It was not a good time to be branching out into into things then. So we loved Denver, but Denver did not love us at that time.
And so that's what brought you then back to Amarillo.
That and parents that needed some assistance. We thought we'll come back for a little while and see what happens.
You still saw it as sort of a temporary move.
We did. And we both just fell into the things we loved. I went back to the Civic Center actually for a while, worked there for a few years, and I still love that place. I think it's a great place, and the great people are still there. But then I got offered the job at the place I'm at now, and it changed everything.
I want to talk, before we get to that point, I do know a few people, couples even, who have done the New York experiment and then come back here. You know, they've lived there for a couple of years. In your case, you've lived there, for 10 years. Is there a culture shock coming back, whether it's stepped down through Denver or not? Right. And is it a good culture shock or like a hard culture shock?
It was a little of both, honestly. I think I remember my first really big culture shock moment. I remember as I went to the grocery store, I think it was Market Street at the time, and I just needed peanut butter for my child. And I remember being so overwhelmed by the number of options. I was used to going to my bodega, where they had like maybe 4 different kinds of peanut butter. You just pick the one you want. And it took me probably 2 or 3 years to quit buying my groceries 2 meals at a time, because I was so used to only buying what I could carry up 6 flights of stairs.
Exactly, yeah.
So this whole big box store thing I couldn't wrap my brain around buying an entire week's worth of groceries. So that was a bit of a culture shock. But the positive side of it was things like we went to the symphony here the first time in our beautiful Globe News Center. I mean, I don't think people realize how beautiful that building is and how meticulous the acoustics are. And I think we paid $25 for the ticket and free parking.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought, why don't more people do this? I mean, even when we lived in Denver, you're going to pay at least $75 for the cheapest ticket, and then you're going to pay another $40 to park. And then it's going to take you 4 hours to get home from downtown Denver, even if you don't live that far. So I think that that quality of life aspect that I think is missed by some who have not, there's all this stuff to do in Denver and New York, couldn't afford to do any of it.
Right.
And then getting there was just
and the logistics
were just impossible. Yeah. So I think our quality of life here is something that was a positive culture shock back.
So eventually you found your way to the Amarillo Area Foundation. What was your entry point there? What was your first position there?
I was director of operations.
Okay.
So I oversee IT, HR, marketing, and just the operations of the facility.
What year was that?
It was 2016.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So that seems pretty recent, but I know like a lot of things have changed.
Yeah.
At the foundation, like just the breadth of what it does since then.
Yeah.
So tell me about where the organization was at that point.
At that point, see, we were still over in our previous facility and over on Fillmore. And I think we had 16 on staff, maybe. And we're doing obviously a lot of great work with the ACE scholarship program and our grants. But we were doing a little bit more of a reactionary granting where we just, whoever applied, that's what we would look at and consider for our discretionary grants. And the big change was when we decided to get a lot more strategic about what we were doing. And then, of course, we moved into our big new building, too.
And then there was COVID.
COVID changed everything.
The growth of the Panhandle gives like a lot of major moments transformed the organization.
Yeah, and it was funny when I first started there, Clay Stribling, our previous CEO, was a lawyer when he was hired. And so we jokingly called him a recovering lawyer because he wasn't quite past all of that. And all the men had to wear jackets and ties, and the women were always in dresses. And we felt like we worked at a bank sometimes. Mm-hmm. And COVID definitely changed that in many ways. But I think also we started, and this was to Clay's credit, we had one of our grantees come up for a meeting and they were just a few minutes late, and they apologized because they felt like they had to go home and change clothes before they came to a meeting at the foundation. And they work like in an urban farm and such, right? So yeah, naturally. And I think that really struck Clay as, wow, we can't be an organization where people feel like they can't come as they are.
Right.
So between that and COVID, it's changed where, I mean, you'll see people in jeans that work at the foundation. Our dress policy is dress appropriately for your day. So if I'm cleaning out the basement, that's going to be a very different look than if I have a board meeting. But just a lot more casual. And also the demographics of our staff has changed greatly. A lot of younger, a lot more diversity in backgrounds and in racial and ethnic identities. And that has just been a really important change for us because
it reflects the people who are benefiting from the work that you do. Exactly.
But also having that lived experience of being able to say, I know what it's like to need to ask for help. Mm-hmm. And how hard that is, and how hard it is to get by paycheck to paycheck. And if you're a person who's never experienced that, there's going to be a lack of, I don't want to see empathy, but a lack of really understanding what it takes to get by in life. And I think having that diversity has been really helpful in us checking our assumptions of who our constituents are and what they need.
I want to talk about that shift in mindset from, you described it as being more reactionary to being more strategic. And to me, like a reactionary perspective means you're following the trends. You're waiting to see what happens, what needs to develop, how the culture goes. When you're strategic, like you're taking more of a leadership role. You're driving conversations. You're saying these are the things that we want people to think about. And that, I mean, that for an organization as large as the foundation, like that's a really significant change. Yeah. But it also raises your profile and helps you guide organizations toward work that maybe is not being done. I want to hear like what that means for the culture of an organization and how you think about what you do, because that's a huge shift.
Yeah, it was large, and it's taken some time for it to really, I think, take hold both internally and externally. But what we ended up doing was identifying strategic areas we really wanted to see if we could make a real change in. So we looked at food insecurity, mental health, opportunity youth, which are young adults who are 18 to 24. They're disconnected from either the workforce or from education. And then 0 to 5 literacy and digital equity, and then access to affordable quality childcare. So just some small problems, right? Some tiny little
things that are
systemic issues that we can fix in a couple of years. But what that, first of all, has forced us to step back and learn a lot about all of those issues, because you can't do the work without having some basic level of understanding, but also really lean into one of our values at the foundation is collaboration. And we really have to lean into that value, because none of those problems are going to be fixed by the foundation. Right? We could empty our coffers and not fix one of those problems.
Right.
So really finding those partnerships, which oftentimes means finding partners outside of the Texas Panhandle. Who can we partner with to help replicate something or bring something here that could be more impactful, but also starting to look upstream. Why do we have food insecurity? Why are our children's mental health deteriorating? I mean, what are the things that are causing us to get there? And that's one of the things we mean by being less reactionary. Like, what can we do that's going to make our region better in 15 or 20 years? Okay. Maybe not that short. We still have to do the problems. We still have to feed people, obviously. We still have to fund people's access to mental health right now. But can we also look at what we can do to keep that need from growing at the very least? Okay. Maybe alleviating some of it.
I know your position there has changed. You've taken on additional responsibilities. You've kind of moved up the ranks to where you are now. What are some of the things that like you're especially proud of that have happened, you know, whether you're directly involved or not? Like what are the successes of the foundation over the past decade?
Well, definitely the Panhandle Gives has been a huge one. And I know that's probably what people know more about us than anything else now.
Yes.
Because it's been so
as a
widespread.
Marketing tool, like it's probably the best thing that you could have done. And it's not for you, like it's for these organizations, which I think is the genius of it.
I have to give my shout out to our marketing director, Bart Carter, who has just done amazing work around this since we started it. But I think I'm really proud of the way we have formed these partnerships, and I'm going to use a group that we loosely call Panhandle Connected. Okay. So we're working on digital equity for the Texas Panhandle. And just the innovation that's coming out of it, and I'm not going to even say national recognition, it's international recognition. Yeah. We have people going to Taipei in a couple of weeks to talk to them about what we're doing here. And I'm so proud of that, because it's an effort where everyone has left their egos and their logos at the door. Nobody wants credit. Nobody's looking to make sure they're the one who gets that grant money. We just want it to happen. And I think that just comes from this Panhandle spirit that we have of no one's coming to save us. We're going to have to come up with a solution, but it's going to take every one of us to do it.
Well, and it involves the municipal element, the government,
the
there's
education,
Region 16.
Yeah, there's the range working on it. And we just wrote an NTIA grant, which I'll try not to check my email, but it's supposed to be released any time now to let us know if we got it. But so I'm really proud of that. And I'm really proud of internally, I'm just really proud of the staff that we have developed. I don't know that people understand the level of expertise, passion, and talent we have working for us. And that's that's from our accounting department to our grants, to marketing, to our leadership team. I think that is something that's been very intentional of making sure we're getting them the professional development they need. But it's because of them and their passion and their willingness to really try something new and take some bold steps that we're able to do any of this. Okay. And I'm just super, super proud of them.
You mentioned Clay and you've talked about the staff, and I'm, as someone who knew Clay, I mean, he's been a podcast guest, and knowing his identity and leadership within the foundation, you're suddenly in this period that you didn't have a lot of time to prepare for, a little bit, but a period of transition. Yeah. And without the leadership that helped you take these major steps over the past decade. And I wonder, with the understanding that like everything is still very transitional, you're still the interim CEO and president, but like, what does that look like within the organization when you deal with the loss of a very prominent leader like Clay? The work doesn't stop though.
Right.
And the team building doesn't stop. So like, how do you personally step in and say, okay, well, I've got this interim title, but we got to keep moving.
Got to keep moving. Well, one of the major gifts that Clay left us was helping us all prepare for that. I think a tremendous leader makes sure that the work can continue without you, right? I think that's so important. And he did that.
And he stepped down.
But even before that, and even before he was first diagnosed with cancer, he would make sure we started talking succession. And what did we all need to know? Did we do that perfectly? No, it's a very hard thing to do. There's still things I'm uncovering that wow, that would have been really helpful to know last year. But I think part of it is also keeping things slow and steady. That's kind of what I'm working on right now. And just acknowledging that, yes, the work has to continue, but some days it's really hard. I mean, for instance, his furniture was moved out of his office this weekend. And it's funny how, it was really hard to walk past that office and there's no desk. So we're going to continue to have those moments. We have engaged with a grief counselor to come work with staff. I think part of it is doing the work, but also just understanding everyone's going to grieve their own way. We have to acknowledge it, hold each other up where we need to, give grace where we need to. But Clay would not want us to be doing things of what would Clay do.
Okay.
Right? I
mean, that was pretty clear at his funeral. He was like, don't make this about me.
Right?
I was like, well, that's kind of what funerals are, right?
Right. So that was very much a Clay thing. He did not like things being about him. I think, again, it goes back to having a staff that respects and love each other so much. And we've been able to do that. But it's also, there's always an opportunity there as well. What are things we could change that might be helpful in the future? And I think that those are things that are important to look at right now too. What are some gaps that we might need to fill? What are some things I need to learn, whether it be professional development or relationships or that sort of thing? So like I said, my goal is to just keep the wheels on the bus right now. And once we're at a place where we feel like the board can make that decision about what is ahead, then we'll just go with that.
Can I ask how it feels? Because you're in a position where you have a lot of institutional knowledge. You've been there long enough. But you're the interim. The decision is being made by the board. And so like you can't like come in and say, we need to change all these things, because it's not your organization.
Right.
And it's still an organization that works on behalf of all these other nonprofits. Like, how do you think about your role? Is it just to provide some leadership, but like not too much leadership? Like, how does that work?
It is a delicate balance, I will say. I've been trying to look at it as whether I'm the next president CEO or not, I feel any interim's job is to make sure the permanent president CEO is successful.
Okay.
So I'm trying to do things like just figure out things that have fallen through the cracks that need to be taken care of. And, those things happen when you have a predecessor who was as sick as Clay was for a while.
Right.
And some things just got missed. And so that's really been how I've been trying to frame it in my mind of not whoever the next CEO is. I want them to come in with policies, procedures in place, but relationships in a good place, understanding that the business is happening as usual at the foundation. But again, we're not making any drastic changes that would be, frankly, disrespectful to a permanent position either way.
What did you learn from Clay? Like as a colleague?
Goodness.
I mean, he's talked about himself personally.
Right.
So my listeners will have heard from him, but like as a colleague, what did you gain from him?
Clay was a stoic. I don't think that'll surprise anyone. I am not a stoic. And I think we joked, he's the thinker, I'm the feeler.
Okay.
And we were a very good team in that way. We sometimes jokingly referred to me as the Clay whisperer because I would come into a staff member after they had talked to me like, what Clay really meant to say was, I realize that sounded harsh, but how he really meant to say this was, but that stoicism is something that while he was sick and even after he was diagnosed as terminal, it served him in a way that really surprised me. He was never overly emotional about his situation. There was no, oh, poor me. He didn't want anybody else to be, oh, poor me. But he still took his work very seriously and still really wanted to do it. And my first reaction to that was, go home and be with your family.
Yeah.
Right? But then after I really started listening more to him and watching him, what it really told me was that he loved his work. And I think there's value in that. I think sometimes as a society, we want to say work should not be important. It's all about family and relationships. But when your work is relationships and you're building that, I think it was really inspiring to me how he handled his illness, handled those relationships, and left when he knew it was time to leave. And then stepped away and did not try to, he was there to help me, but he never tried to step in and make a decision or tell me I was doing anything wrong, or he was just there to listen. And then even if I can get more personal towards the end, when I saw him right before Thanksgiving, I went to his house to meet with him. And that was the last time I saw him in person. And he was still worried about making sure I had everything I need. But I asked him, I said, how are you doing? And he told me he was perfectly at peace. And I think to the end that was, and who gets to say that? I mean, his life was cut short. There's no, no one would say it wasn't, but to have lived your life in a way where even at the age of 56, you say, it's been a good one, right? And I'm proud of my work. I'm proud of what I did, and I'm perfectly at peace. I think that is just something we could all strive to be able to come to that place.
Well, and that's the value of having a real purpose, to your life. I mean, it wasn't a legal job where he's filing documents on behalf of companies. Like, he was serving real people.
Yeah.
And that says a lot about, as you approach fulfillment in your life, as you approach your health, your lifespan, all those things, purpose is so important to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he found purpose. And he loved giving other people purpose. I mean, Clay irrevocably changed my life when he hired me. And I'm not being hyperbolic about that. I knew I wanted to do something with purpose. I've always felt that. And from a very young age, I ended up being, whether I was a leader in my youth group at church or show up to help at a campaign and end up running the war room. I mean, just always various things would happen. He saw that in me pretty quickly as being a leader and really invested in me in that way and believed in me in things I didn't believe in myself for quite some time. And I think that's when you have that kind of purpose too, to grow people and to develop people, it's very powerful what that can leave behind.
I want to close this section by asking you've identified yourself as someone who's very good with people. It's a big part of your job. You transplanted here as a kid, you moved away for a while, you came back, and now your job is literally helping people through the foundation. What have you learned about the people who live in this area? Whether it's through your coworkers, whether it's through the nonprofits that depend on you, or the residents that they serve, what can you say about the people of the Panhandle?
I think the thing that stands out to me the most, particularly when I go to other communities, for instance, I'll go work with other community leaders in Dallas or Austin. One time I was talking to a group about early childhood literacy, and I said something about, well, have you reached out to your libraries to see, how you can partner with them? And they said, well, I'd have to figure out who to talk to. And it dawned on me, I'd be texting Amanda at the time.
I was going to say,
right? And be like, yay, buddy, can you help me? Having those relationships that we have because of the size of the town we are, but also I think we all know that we're kind of under-resourced here in many ways. We don't have the tax base. We don't have the federal help. Sometimes we don't have the tourism that other parts have. And that is what we make up for in relationships and partnering together. And I think when I tell people what we do up here and how we all just reach out and help each other, they're stunned. They have they just don't understand how that would work. So that's our secret sauce, is the way we take care of each other. It is astonishing, and people don't realize it's not universal. The way we all helped each other through fires and through floods and through, snow and the Panhandle Gives and everything. I mean, we take care of each other in a way that's really, really special.
This week's episode is supported by SKP Creative, and the team there asked me to talk about the Amarillo Tribune. If you haven't heard, the Tribune is a new local nonprofit journalism project. I'm actually a founding board member of this organization, but only on the budgeting and nonprofit side. I'm not writing for it or anything. Jackie Kingston is the CEO and executive editor, and she has helped make the Tribune Amarillo's first community-supported, digital-only news organization. They provide free public service journalism about Amarillo and this area. They're doing really great work. It's a daily publication that provides local coverage about issues we care about, including city government. So SKP invites you to support the Tribune with a monthly gift or a one-time gift, but reminds you that content on Amarillo Tribune is always free. You can learn more by visiting amarillotribune.org. That's amarillotribune.org. And thanks to SKP Creative for the support. Okay, I'm back with Keralee Clay. Keralee, this is the part of the show I call 8 Straight. 8 Straight is sponsored every week by Panhandle Plains Historical Museum in Canyon. It's the largest history museum in Texas, and I'm sure you know this. Its collection includes the 26 different buildings of Pioneer Town, which is a hands-on village modeled after actual Panhandle businesses that existed around 1900 or so. So you can see that. You can touch things. You can go inside the jail at panhandleplains.org.
And my daughter calls it her town.
Her town?
She loves that place.
Okay. It's always fun.
It is.
I think adults kind of walk through it because we're familiar with it. It's fun to see a kid in there because it is a really interesting place. Okay, when you think of Amarillo 10 years from now, and I know this is something you think about, what do you hope for?
I want us to be known as a place that's really innovative, like lean into our pioneer spirit and realize pioneer is it's not a point in time. Mm-hmm. It's a way of living. And I think I'd like to see in 10 years people look at Amarillo, Texas and say, wow, how did they get to that place of being such an innovative resource for the rest of the country?
And they are saying that now.
They're saying that now, but I want it to stay, right? And I want to really grow. I want to really lean into that and not kill that momentum.
Okay. Other than wind, what does this area have too much of?
I would have to say dust because it's one of the few things I'm allergic to.
Okay.
It kills me.
You're in the wrong place.
I know, right?
What does this area not have enough of?
I would have to say civic engagement. I would like to see, and I know it's not like Amarillo or the Texas Panhandle is not unique with that, but I feel like we have too few voices at the table oftentimes. And I would love to, and it's one of the things we're working on with Panhandle Connected and the city's working on of how do we make sure that all the voices are being heard, and not only being heard, but understand that they do have a place and that they can make a difference just by speaking up and saying what they need. So I would say I would love to see more civic engagement in our communities.
I mean, we're about to enter election season just for city council and stuff.
Yeah.
I think the last time we had, 16,000 people vote in a city of 200,000 people.
Yeah.
And so 1 in 20 of the people you know are choosing
determining
the local leadership.
Yeah.
Which
we can do better.
Ridiculous.
We can do better.
Okay, what's your favorite local coffee shop?
I would have to say Palace. And it's not just because they have really great coffee, but I just love the vibe of it. Mm-hmm. It's just a comfortable place to sit around and have a cup of coffee and chat with folks. So I enjoy it.
You lost the right down the street Palace.
We did.
Which was, I imagine, one of the benefits of working at the foundation.
Right.
At the new location.
Yeah.
You're just right there.
Right there. Yeah, it was bad timing. But the new coffee shop there, Journeys, is also it's very good. I just...
Amarillo needs a downtown coffee shop.
It has to have one. Yeah. And it's good. It's just, I miss the vibe of Palace.
Okay. What's your favorite local restaurant?
Bangkok Tokyo, I think.
Yeah.
It's my go-to. Comfort food go-to. That and Bagel Place when I really want to kind of feel New Yorker again.
I'm always surprised that bagel place is as popular it is among like my kids' generation. Like that is the spot.
Yeah, it's tasty. But Bangkok, Tokyo is just special.
Okay, what's your favorite local neighborhood?
I love West Hills. I lived there at a really pivotal point in my life when I first got divorced. And it's just this lovely, I don't know, it feels like a small neighborhood, but it has actual hills, and the park there is where I always took my kids to play. And
it's got some funky architecture, kind of like Olsen Park. It's got sort of that vibe.
I love it. I love West Hills.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation. What's the most underrated aspect of living in the Panhandle?
Well, kind of alluding to what I said before, I think anyone who says there's not anything to do here is just not paying attention. There's plenty to do. I can't do everything I would like to do here, but also the barrier of entry to be able to go hear music any night of the week or go see amazing art at Sunset Gallery. I mean, it's just, there's lots to do, and there's lots to do for every age range and every interest if you're just paying attention.
Okay, last question. When was the last time you visited Cadillac Ranch?
My daughter and I went it was like a year ago, October, because Hoodoo Mural Festival was having the muralist out there to paint. So we went to watch them in paint, and it was a blast.
Yeah.
It was a blast.
It's fun to see people who actually know their way around a spray can.
Right, exactly. It was fun. And then we do go out there and sometimes do shoots for the Panhandle Gives stuff for the international stuff that they want us to do. It's just what we're known for.
Yeah. Okay, so that concludes the 8 straight questions. I like to close by asking my guests to endorse something. So what's one thing you would like local people to know about? Or
I think I'm going to go really broad and say and just endorse philanthropy in general. Find a nonprofit that speaks to you and do something to help. Whether money's always good, but if there's a way you can volunteer, Hands-On Amarillo is a great place to start and find that. But get involved in your community. And I think what I have found is we think that you're helping others. You're really helping yourself.
Yeah.
It's good for your mental health. It's good for everything. So find a way to give back.
Well, and that adds to the civic engagement part where you don't have the same group of people doing all the same work, serving on the same boards.
Get out of your bubble and go do something different.
Okay. Keralee Clay, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it.
And that concludes the episode. I want to say thanks to Keralee for the interview. You can give to the Clay Stribling Legacy Endowment Fund if you're interested at AmarilloAreaFoundation.org. Thanks to SKP Creative and Panhandle Plains Historical Museum for supporting this podcast. And thanks to Angelina Marie for editing every week. Thank you for listening. Hey Amarillo exists on a weekly basis because of listeners like you and the local people who support it financially through patreon.com/HeyAmarillo. Hey Amarillo's executive producers include Jason Burr, Patrick Burns, Corey Burns, Katie Linger, Josh Wood, Cindy Graham, Wes Reeves, and Barbara and Jim Witten. This has been episode 388. My name is Jason Boyette, and I'll see you next week.